Hello everybody, this is Raillashup Productions here. So I recently did a suggestion on my community tab about what should I do when I reach over 700,000 total views on YouTube. And most of you said that I should do the Chase Melon Collision document. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy the document, and I'll see all of you later. It was one of the darkest days on the Northeast Corridor. A disaster that was caused by crew negligence. And at that time, it was called the worst wreck of Amtrak's history until the 1993 Big Bayou wreck. But many years later, people still talk and remember about this collision. This is the story of the 1987 Chase Maryland collision. In the afternoon of January 4th, 1987, Conrail ENS 121 was at Bayview Yard, with engineer Ricky Gates and Edward Cornwall, the brakeman, were called on duty to take this train bound for NOLA in Pennsylvania. The train was served by 3 engines and no freight cars, with Conrail B36-7s, 5044, 5052, and 5045. The crew was still on board and they were ready to go. However, they forgot to do a calcium tests in 5044. The alerter that will alert the crew they ran past the red signal was silenced with duct tape, and to make matters worse, the crew was smoking marijuana. Those factors would prove useful to an investigation later on. Meanwhile, Amtrak 94, the Colonial, was making its way from Washington, D.C. towards Boston South Station. Amtrak AM7s 903 and 900. 94 departed Baltimore Penn Station at 1:16 p.m. with its next station stop, Wilmington, Delaware. 660 passengers, 7 service employees, and a crew of 5, with Jerome Edwards as the engineer, were on board. Unfortunately, they were all heading for disaster later. Conrail ENS 121 was heading towards a gunpowder interlocking at around 60 miles an hour. It would have to come to a stop there to let 94 to pass before proceeding. However, this didn't happen. As the Conrails got closer, it bypassed a red signal, warning them not to pass. Coleman was responsible to call the signals in case he missed them, but unfortunately he didn't do it. But eventually, Gates applied the brakes and came to a complete stop after they realized they passed the red signal. Unfortunately, since they got out of the siding and onto the main, there was nothing the crew can do to get out of the way. 94 was zipping through the chase at full speed, but suddenly, Engineer Evans saw a blue steering cab GE directly ahead of him on his own track. The Conrail crew turned around and saw 94 at their same track. As the two trains got closer and closer, disaster struck. two trains collided at 1:18 p.m. The locomotives and cars laid all over the tracks. The occupants, meanwhile, on the Amtrak train were trapped inside and were anxious to be saved. Conrail 5045 was obliterated from the collision. 5052 meanwhile suffered major damage in its cabin nose. 5044 was lightly damaged, while the Amtrak AM7s suffered major damage as well. Finally, within minutes, the first responders arrived. It worked for 24 hours to pull out the injured, the uninjured, and unfortunately they also found bodies. In total, 16 people were dead, including the engineer on the Amtrak who was killed instantly. Over 100 more were injured. At that time, it was called the worst wreck in Amtrak's history until the 1993 Big Bayou wreck, which killed 47 people. After the accident, an investigation was soon launched by the NTSB, and after the investigation was concluded, it was clear that the Conrail crew were the main ones at fault for the accident. First of all, Gates and Cuomo said that they were not smoking marijuana. However, it was discovered that they were both lying, as they were both tested positive for marijuana. As mentioned before, they also forgot to do the cow signal tests in 5044. And not only the alerter that will alert the crew that passed the signal was silenced with duct tape, but one of the light bulbs in the PRR-style cat signal was missing from 5044, and Gates even said that the signals came too late to warn him, but the NTSB knew that that was not true. But were the Conrail crew the only ones at fault for the accident? Not really, as it was discovered that both trains were speeding. The speed limit for the Amtrak in the area is 105 miles an hour, bills going at 128 miles an hour. The speed limit for the Conrails, though, is 25 to 50 miles an hour, bills going at over 60 miles an hour, especially for a signal that requires them to go at 15 miles an hour. However, this was not the end of the story for the Northeast Corridor. In 2015, Amtrak 188 derailed at Frankfurt Junction because the engineer forgot to slow down at a cove. His actions left 8 dead and injured over 200 people. In the end, Gates and Cuomo were suspended indefinitely by Conrail, but they resigned before being terminated. But Gates was not out of the woods. He was soon charged with manslaughter by locomotive, plus lying to the NTSB, and was sentenced to 7 years in prison, plus 1 year probation. He was released by 1992 and worked as an abuse counselor at a treatment center. Conrail 5045 and Amtrak 900 and 903 were all deemed a total loss and never ran on the rails again. 5052 and 5044 meanwhile were both repaired and returned to service. It's been 34 years since this accident occurred, but to this day, the Chase Brown collision remains as one of the worst wrecks in Amtrak's history.